Hi, I'm Lee, and welcome to the April Energy Update, which is all about purpose with an undercurrent of grief, and I'll explain why in just a moment. For the last 14 years, I've been bringing my work to the world on where self-growth and spirituality intersect. I create these energy updates to help empower you, give you a greater sense of what's going on energetically, and connect you with like-minded community. So, April is going to be a really interesting one. I mean, what month isn't interesting at the moment? It's certainly going on at high speed down here. If you've watched my last few videos, my last few months' videos, and I recommend going back and checking them out if this month's resonates with you, creativity and a sense of your purpose were going to be on the rise as you go through this coming year. I've said in the last few months that because there is so much dissolving, we tend to get hijacked and seduced by that, particularly as often media or other sources would like to focus us only on the negative and what's going wrong or what's disappearing. Those of you who are watching this video are most likely one of the innovators for these times, and there are millions and millions and millions of us around the world who want to bring innovation to the world. So one of the big things that's going to come up in April, very specifically, energetically, is a sense of your purpose. Now, purpose can be a tricky thing. I see a lot of times in the self-growth community this feeling of what's my purpose, and what's usually right behind it is I feel hopeless, I feel hopeless. So it's wanting to escape feeling hopeless or helpless by activating purpose. And the truth is, usually, we all, no matter how purposeful we are, we all have to get to a place where we sit with hopelessness occasionally, and we sit with helplessness, and we're not trying to springboard away from that feeling by masking it with a sense of purpose or drive. Those of you who find that you like to perhaps compulsively do, you're constantly in the energy of doing, or you don't know what to do with yourself if you have a quiet moment, for you guys, there's going to be such value in taking some quiet moments, even if at first you're afraid of doing that or it feels uncomfortable. There's gold in the energy of restlessness and anxiety that sits underneath it. So I'm not speaking about that kind of purpose. I'm not speaking about the purpose that's trying to mask hopelessness or helplessness. I'm talking about a whole other level of purpose coming into your life. And it might look completely different to what you thought you were going to be doing. So, I'm a classic example of that. I thought I was going towards a different career completely in my 20s, and 14 years ago this work began, and if you could have predicted what I'm doing today 14 years ago, I would never have known. But equally, even within my 14 years in this work, there has been a reinvention for me constantly around what I do, how I do it, and that's important. So, for those of you who are feeling a bit stuck in what you're doing, but you don't feel like you can leave what you're doing, whether it's a job that you're employed in, or you're a successful entrepreneur and you don't want to just kill the business, look at how you can reinvent yourself this month, because the energy of reinvention is going to be on the table when it comes to purpose in April. You might be looking at how you want to reinvent your life. It doesn't have to be career. You maybe have been struggling with the way that your family's going the last 3 or 4 months. Perhaps you're noticing a lot of friction in the energy of your family, with your kids and with your spouse or your partner, or if you're a single parent, there's just a friction going on that you don't like. So there is going to be an energy of purpose in April that you can use. So for some of you, it will be looking at that situation and going, okay, well, what do I need to do to try and increase the happiness in this group? Because the group isn't solving it itself. So maybe I need to take charge and see if I can just subtly introduce a few activities or schedule a few things that's going to break us out of this rut and give everyone a space to feel a little more uplifted. It's going to be very important that you lean in to your purpose rather than sit back from it or fear it or just sit and moan about how you feel like you've got nothing in life, because I get it, don't worry, I'm British, so I'm good at moaning, it's in my cultural DNA, and it can be fun. Like, I joke, sometimes I like to moan just to kind of, helps me not feel so homesick. But if we're moaning in a really heavy way, and if we're moaning repetitively, it can get really intense, and it just drives us down. It puts us right into the victim mode. It makes us think, oh, we can't create anything. Now, some of you may have some intense patterns going right now where you do feel like a victim some of the time. But what you have to do when you're in those, and it can be hard, to reason with yourself when you're in victim mode, you have to remember that it's going to change. It's going to pass. How you feel that day can change, but it may take your action. And for some of you, I get this feeling, and this was as I was tuning in this morning and getting the intuitive messages about purpose and grief being big this month. For some of you, it's banging your head against a wall. It's like, well, no, this was supposed to work. Life changes all the time. We're all on a trajectory where our physical appearance, our energy is going to change every decade we go through. So too does the work that we're doing. So too do the relationships that we're in. So too do the dynamics that we have. I mean, those of you who have teenagers, think back to how that child was 10 years ago, and you can vouch for that. It's like, wow, this is like a whole different person. So allow yourself to feel this sense of purpose that is asking you to ask some questions. If you're not ready to activate a new sense of purpose in your life or to be the leader, just ask some questions. Journal this month. What would I like to do in my life? What am I trying to vision? Write some things down. Ask yourself some questions about what you think are your biggest sticking points around changing your life, changing certain areas of your life. And that brings me to the slightly less enjoyable part, maybe, grief. You know, there are those of us on the planet who know grief very well. You know, grief is something I've had a strong relationship with. It's one of my low points. You know, we all have our high points and our low points, and there's a certain low point that can usually take us down. For some people, it's frustration or resentment or anger. For others, it can be grief, it can be sadness, it can be confusion. So the reason that grief is going to come up a little bit in April is because of this identity change. Because as you are embracing a different sense of purpose, as you are walking into a different energy of purpose in your life, grief can often accompany it. And it's, you know, grief can be everything from the thing that locks you down to the ground and makes you feel like you're suffocating and you're going to die, through to a passing moment of acknowledging the sadness that you're going to miss this person because you're moving house, or you're going to miss the people that you're working with because you've realized that you need to change job, or you're going to miss your child living at home now they're going off to college. So grief can be a very natural acknowledgement for us of noticing change moving, but for some people grief can combine with all sorts of other things in their psyche and in their energy field and take them down. So if you're somebody who's been having a lot of grief, really lean into the purpose part. And if you're somebody who's feeling quite alive and quite happy with your sense of purpose, don't be shocked if there's some grief going on. There's so much changing on our world at rapid speed. Much of it we're not pleased by, many of us. You know, we look at what's going on the planet, and there are things that it's quite natural to have grief about. So, you know, we can have some grief about things while we also recognize that our grief can be an indicator of what we need to change. So if you feel sad about something you're seeing in the world, it's not going to feel good to sit in that sadness. It's going to feel good to take action. It's funny, you know, the last energy update, which is March energy update, so go back and watch that one if this one has resonated with you and you want to get some more insights. Just after recording that energy update, in which I said, you know, be the change you want to see rather than just rail against that which you don't like, I stumbled across an amazing video from a company called Charity Water. You can look them up on the internet, Charity Water, and immediately became a monthly donor. What they're doing is amazing. That guy's story is wonderful, the guy who set it up, and what those people are doing to be a solution in the world rather than just moan about things that are going on in the world. Is so inspiring. I was so delighted and grateful that they're doing what they're doing. And to me, they are one example of the many. And we are the many. And if we activate our sense of purpose around what we can do to help shift things on the planet, then we're throwing our ball into the positive side and letting the negative side stay over there and do what it needs to do. So, thank you for tuning in this month. Big love to all of you. I hope you have a great April. If you want to connect more with the work that I'm doing, I have a few things going on at the moment. My training for creatives, entrepreneurs, and change makers is happening in San Diego. It's a 5-day training at the end of April, and it's called Impact the World. And it's all about how do you bring your impactful work to the world in a way that works for you and works for the people you're serving. So you can check that out at my events page. We have 2 transformational retreats this year, one in North Carolina at the Art of Living Center in June, and one in Costa Rica at Blue Spirit in October, again on my events page. And last but not least, this month in the portal, our brand new release is called The End of People-Pleasing. The portal is my members community. I do a live Q&A every month. And The End of People-Pleasing is the new MP3 for portal members, or it's available in the store. I will play you a brief trailer of that in just a moment. And we are currently in the middle of an online course called Empaths versus Narcissists, a power dynamic and how to recover from it. And I will be doing a live Q&A of that for that course on April the 21st. So check it out if that appeals to you. There's still time to get in time for the live Q&A. But the course will be forever available afterwards, but the live Q&A part's this month. So we're busy here, we're doing stuff. So great, thank you for tuning in, everyone. Now is the trailer for The End of People-Pleasing, a little excerpt. Big love, see you all next month. Take care.
People-pleasing is when you override your own instincts, feelings, or desires in order to serve the feelings or desires of another at your own expense. It plays out a lot. It plays out more than you realize. It shows up in very subtle ways. And the problem with it is a little like serving someone empty food that you don't have. So for example, many of you are people-pleasing because you believe it makes you a good person. The person you might be soothing and pleasing in that moment is not learning anything from the exchange because you are not being honest with them. So people-pleasing is a very dishonest way of energetically operating. Now, we fully understand that many who are people-pleasers have become that way because of trauma. So for example, if you had abusive or rageaholic parents or close people in your life, you learn to become a people-pleaser in order to keep the peace. That is survival. That is protecting yourself from further trauma, and it is shielding yourself from the trauma that may be inflicted upon you if you do not give someone else what their will or their words or their energy is showing you that they want from you. But once you have pleased people a few times, they will keep trying it. This is why many of you grind yourself down into a hole with certain people in your life. You get angry that they will not learn. Why do they keep doing this over and over? Well, because you will not learn and you keep doing it over and over. You keep making excuses for others that actually hurt you.